And you're very welcome to another edition of Eamonn and The Gaffers. Really interesting guy we've got this time round. His name's John Coleman. John Coleman had a very long playing career, mainly in non-league football, it has to be said. But this guy was one of the most prolific non-league goal scorers in history. We were talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of goals. What, about 500, John?
524 to be exact. I don't count them.
Well, that then gets us on as to why I'm talking to this man about Gaffers, because he was appointed player manager of Ashton United. We're going back to 1997. Then 2 years later, he joins his present club, Accrington Stanley, though that comes in two parts. There was a bit of a break, and he goes back again. And I think we're looking about, 18 years or so, John, at Accrington Stanley?
Yeah, combined, yeah.
Yeah. And this makes you, when we put it all together and we look at your managerial experience, and we should point out that Accrington, they are in League One. League One is the third tier of the English Football League. But where does this make you in terms of experience and managing teams, John?
I'll be up there one of the longest there. I think there's about 4 or 5 who've probably managed more than me, and have been at the clubs longer. But we've seen it all from really low league, non-league to the Unibond First Division. So we've actually won 4 leagues to get here. So we've made ourselves football league managers. We were non-league managers, and we've made ourselves to establish league managers.
But one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you, John, was to find out the difference between the non-league managers, the guys that have come, you've got into the league there, the difference between what you have to do on that journey in the lower leagues, and say what a Premier League manager has to do, because those are the pin-up boys. Those are the guys everybody knows what they have to do, which presumably is basically put the team out. Do you have to do more than just put the team out?
I've done everything from putting the kettle on to picking up fans. The chairman used to make me pick up fans many years ago.
Put bums on seats, literally.
Yeah, we've done everything. We've cleared the pitch of snow before the game. We've put nets up. Jimmy Bell's my assistant. He's fixed the electrics from time to time when the lights have gone off, and fixed the showers. And to be honest, there's 2 different ways of looking at it. I know the Premiership, they do come under a lot of spotlight and a lot of pressure. So you can, and they do get well paid for that, obviously. I think that the non-league managers and the lower league managers, it's more of a vocation. It's more of a love, and let's get it straight. I'd be doing this if I wasn't getting paid. I love it, and it's part of my life. And
who's your team? Who's around you in terms of administration, in terms of running the club?
Well, we have a chairman, and we have our owner and a chief executive secretary, and then basically it's just myself, my assistant manager Jimmy Bell, John Doolin, my first team coach, Tony Warner, goalkeeper coach, Matt Donnelly, and Paul Morgan, the physios, and the kitman Naz Ali, who I said before, he is the most qualified kitman ever. He's a qualified solicitor, but he just loves being our kitman.
So it literally is a vocation for him.
Yeah, so it is. And I think we've always tried to recruit players who love football, who want to do well for themselves, for the family, but we can't give them the riches, but we can give them a platform to earn them riches. So we can't give them £10,000, £20,000 a week, but we can give them a vehicle to go and get that. And if they give us 2 good years and we sell them on, everyone's a winner.
I'm just putting this in perspective here. League One, third tier, as we say. Some big names Accrington Stanley are in there with: Coventry, Portsmouth, Peterborough, Sunderland, Ipswich, Blackpool, Bristol Rovers, the 2 Wimbledons, MK Dons and Wimbledon themselves, Fleetwood Town. I could go on here, but obviously when you look at the clubs, big names they may have, but it doesn't count for anything, does it? Unless you're winning.
I always say to our players, a lot of them clubs would be paying a lot more money than us. But just because their player drives a better car, or has eaten a better steak last night, or has slept in a nicer house, it doesn't make any difference at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It's who's got the bigger heart, who's got the determination. Obviously, skill will come into it, to a certain extent. But you've got to have a passion and a drive, especially at the levels that we're playing at. And I think that's what's made us quite unique, is that we've replicated that over numerous teams over 20 odd years.
And how far can you bring it though, John? That's the thing. I mean, could you ever see championship, for instance?
Well, it'd be brilliant if we could. I mean, it's difficult. You know, we're amongst the lowest, well, I think the second lowest payer in our league, but we were the lowest payer in League Two when we won it. What gives us hope is that we won the league by about 7 or 8 points 2 years ago. We won League Two. Now in that league, there was 3 teams went up with us: Luton, who've gone into the Championship; Coventry, who've gone into the Championship; and Wycombe, who are in the playoffs with a chance of going into the Championship. So they're the 3 teams who went up with us. So, you know, there is scope that we can do it if we just get the right recruitments in, get the right players in, and you need a little bit of luck along the way, obviously.
Let's talk about Accrington Stanley and this bond you have. Maybe it's a love affair for all I know, but 2 spells, right? So first of all, you do this big stint from 99 to 2012. Then you leave. You go off to Rochdale. Was it Southport and Sligo Rovers as well? 2 years later, you're back. What's the story? What happened? Did you have to go and find out if the grass was greener?
No, not really. No, I mean, there's lots of people who've kept the club afloat under the years. You know, if you were to look up at a picture dictionary, football club to go into admin, it'd be a picture of Accrington Stanley. You know, we should be prime candidate to do that, and with, you know, lots of people, not just ourselves, but, you know, lots of people behind the scenes have worked hard and put money in to keep the club afloat, because we don't get big crowds. And we got to the stage in 2012 where I've set out my stall as a manager. I always wanted to treat players the way I wanted to be treated as a player. And I've never wavered from that in 22, 23 years of management. I've never wavered from that. And it got to the point where I was telling players things that I didn't believe, you know, as regards to we were 3 or 4 weeks late with the money, 5 weeks. Sometimes I went 2 or 3 months without getting paid. But I got to the point where I didn't believe what I was getting told, or I didn't believe it could be sustained. And I didn't want that. I didn't want my ethos of football to change. So the opportunity was there for me to go to Rochdale, and the club were going to get some decent compensation for me. And I knew the club needed that money as well. You know, it was only about £70,000 or £80,000, but from a club of Accrington's point of view, that was a big cash injection for us at the time. And so I went, and it probably wasn't the right move. You know, certainly the grass wasn't green at Rochdale, although, you know, I've got no problem with the way it panned out. You know, I give it my best shot. We had some great wins when I played there. Difficult for a Liverpool lad to go to work in Greater Manchester. You know, as you'll know, the bit of the rivalry there. But, you know, it wasn't to be, and I had no problem. You know, it wasn't as good as what I thought it'd be, but, you know, I had no problem with it, getting a sack. You know, it's a results-driven business. And then I went to Southport, which I'd played for 30 years ago, ironically the same chairman, Charlie Clapham. And Charlie got a bit older, I'd got a bit older, and it just really didn't work out personality-wise. But still to this day, Jimmy came with me. Jimmy was working at Port Vale at the time, and he gave up a full-time job to come with me as assistant. And it's still one of our best achievements. We kept Southport up when they were absolutely doomed. They were bottom of the league. They were going nowhere, and we had to give them a Tony McCoy ride, as I would call it. We rallied them, and we got them safe. But the chairman and I didn't see eye to eye, so we parted company at the end of the season. Then I had a wonderful 3 months sojourn into Irish football with Sligo, and I've met wonderful people over there. Beautiful place, Sligo. I'm sure you've been there. And it's a beautiful place, great people, and great friends to this day. You know, we've got a Sligo supporters club for Accrington, and likewise the other way round. And lots come over. A lot of directors come over, and we had a wonderful trip to Rosenborg. We drew Rosenborg in the Europa League. It was great because when I took over the job at Sligo, the chairman said you can only have an assistant if we get through the first round of the Europa League. So we're playing FK Bangor, a team in Lithuania. So the draw gets made, and the fans book the flights before the team can. So I had to take off to Luton and this airport in Lithuania. Jimmy had to take off to Gatwick and this other airport in Lithuania. We met up in the middle. And it was a plastic pitch. There was about 3 and a dog there. It was a real experience. We drew 0-0 and we won the second leg 4-0. So that got us through to a tie with Rosenborg. And it's probably one of the best results in Irish history for Sligo. We went over and won in Rosenborg 2-1. And Morton Gans Pedersen was playing for them. And we played brilliantly. We won. We lost the second leg 3-1 after going 1-0 up, which was a disappointment. But that's it to Rosenborg and winning.
That's the magic of football. And I mean, just on the Sligo subject, the new manager of Northern Ireland, Ian Barraclough, he spent time at Sligo as well.
We took over from him. So, yes, when Ian left Sligo, we took over. And, they stayed around for a few days. And nice people. Him and Gary Stevens, really nice fellas. And, they give us a bit of the heads up about what to expect. But it was great because we ended up moving into Ian's flat. We stayed for. They give us a bit of it was a bit of a smoke screen. They put us up on Ross's Point, which is a beautiful place, lovely cottage on the beach. And I thought, I've died and gone to heaven here. So we're there for 4 weeks, and then we got shifted to this apartment that Ian had. And when we beat Rosenborg, we came back. We celebrated like you wouldn't believe on the plane. You talk about a party bus. The woman gave us the mic and they did the announcements on, because we'd had to get a private plane to go to Rosenborg because we couldn't take the chance again. And we were singing and dancing. Everyone was up singing on the mic on the plane. And when we got back, we had to travel 3 hours from Dublin to Sligo. And we get back in about 6 o'clock in the morning. Opens the door. The electricity had been cut off by Aircon, who sponsored the league. Oh. And all our freezer stuff was all puddles all over the place. Oh. So that brought us down to earth again.
Back down to earth again. I always say in TV when I give people advice, I always say, watch the best, forget the rest. And you mentioned there that you are a Liverpool lad, obviously very highly influenced by Liverpool football team, the new champions of the Premier League. What about Mr. Clough? Anything you would learn from him? Do you admire what he does? What would you say?
The one thing I do learn is that I'm a football fan. And so, there's times that I doubt his decisions, I say, I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done that, as a football fan. And that's why I can take it when, our fans will criticise me. Sure they will, because they'll have their own ideas about what should have happened and who should be playing at a certain time. One thing that he for me, is he's a leader. And, as I said, I've always tried to educate myself of, I've got all my coaching badges, got my pro license. I did the diploma in football a couple of years ago. So I'm always trying to learn and educate myself. And one of the things you come across in these diplomas is that there's a distinction between, you've got coaches, you've got managers, and you've got leaders. Now, you'd have to class Jurgen Klopp as a leader. He's identified a cause and he's made everyone else's, that's their cause. They've all bought into it. And I think it's fantastic the way he's been able to do that, to come in and do it in such a short space of time. Well, you could say 4 or 5 years isn't a short space of time, but in football teams, it's hard to get a dynasty going. Very difficult, And I think that's the one thing that sticks out to me is that he leads the people, he leads the fans, and he leads the players. And that's what I've tried to, not so much Emily, but I've tried to do that all my life in football management.
I'm not an expert on how you play the game there in League One, but it would, if I was listening to opinion, a lot of what would be saying the ball's in the air all the time, as opposed to Premier League where they play it on the floor. Is that true, or what is the way of playing in League One?
There's different styles, there's lots of teams that are quite direct. Wickham have done really well this season, by getting the ball into areas. And, he's a great lad, Gareth, and, by his own admission, he puts teams under pressure, and they've done really well this year. But there's a lot of football played. We try to play football. I've had many arguments with it. We call it there's a couple of the Moan stand behind us and we're very close to the fans, and they are quite old, the people who sit to my right. And I get a little bit of stick when our back four start passing the ball around the back and they don't go forward. And I just turned around and we said, well, listen, I'm not going to do that. You know, I couldn't watch a long ball team. If you don't want to watch that, go and watch rugby. You know, go and watch them kick and chase. And that's not the way we're going to play. And there's going to be a certain time and a place when you can play. And, you know, if you look at Alisson for Liverpool, arguably one of the most comfortable with his feet, there'll be times when he thinks this is too dangerous and you put it in Rose Head. And so, you know, you've just got to get that balance right. We do believe in trying to play football.
Yeah. You mentioned the fans being on your shoulder there. Being in charge of Accrington Stanley, does that mean that when you go out and about in Accrington, when you go to a restaurant, when you go down to the post office, whatever it happens to be, you're more exposed?
Yeah, it's not too bad, to be honest. You know, people just see me as a mate, really. You know, a lot of fans I've known for 20 years. I've known when we were only getting 200. So, you know, we probably 50 or 60 of them ones are still there. We know them, you know, on first name terms.
What is your gate? What sort of average gate would you get?
We're averaging now about 3,000, 3,500. And out of that, you'd be out about 2,300 of our own fans. So it has grown. And, you know, the chairman did a great initiative. He gave every year 4 kids in Heimburn, he gave them a replica Adidas shirt. So, you know, every kid at a certain age now comes through. So every year they have a replica kit. So you're capturing well over 1,200 every year. So, you know, you're giving them an incentive to be an Accrington fan, and we have to try and get them when they're young. But, you know, we go into the bar after the game. The chairman's got a great initiative. It's called Happy Hour. It's £1 a pint if we win. The management and a couple of the players generally go in and circulate with the fans and have a chat and have a laugh with them, and he has a band on. It's a great atmosphere. And what he's tried to do is he's tried to make it a match day experience. So it's not just football's a part of it, but it's only a part of it. You know, there's other things. People can enjoy themselves, win, lose, or draw. Obviously, when we win, it's better because it's cheaper for the ale. Yes. But you know, he has a band on. It's absolutely fantastic. And there was times Billy Key, you know, well-known striker who played for us for years. I'm sure there was times with 10 minutes to go and we were winning 3-0. Billy was in the queue at the bar with his kit on. But it's been really good the way he's galvanised the town. Yes. And give them an identity with our club.
Yes. Well, as well as giving them a pint of lager or beer, what if that was a pint of milk? I have to bring up the milk ad, right? So for anybody who's too young not to know, there was, I think it was in the early 80s, that famous milk ad where the young lad, the guy says to him, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm drinking a pint of milk." And why? His friend asked him, he said, "Well, Ian Rush says, if I don't drink a pint of milk, I'll only be good enough to play for Accrington Stanley." And his mate says to him, "Who are they?" And he says, "Exactly." Has that been a help or a hindrance, a curse or a blessing?
You have to use it as a help, really. You know, it got people talking about Accrington Stanley. Don't forget, Accrington were in the doldrums then. You know, they'd only just reformed in '67. Jack Barrett, one of the directors who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, he was the one who stood up in the town hall meeting and said, "We're going to have a team in Accrington again." But the team was in the doldrums. They were playing really low-level football. And so you can take it as a slur or you can take it as a compliment. But I wish you had £1 for every time I've heard it. Yeah. I'd be very, very wealthy now. But I don't mind it, really. And, you know, around Lancashire at the time, it was very much of a hotbed of cricket. And, you know, I think Shane Warne did play for Accrington Cricket Club. And they had lots, Wiston, which is down the road. They had the likes of Michael Holden, Viv Richards, Alan Donald. Alan Donald did a talk at Accrington. And he said that was the first time he'd heard of it, was because they got that advert in South Africa. So, you know, it gets you known worldwide. And, you know, whatever you say about Accrington, it is a famous name. And if you go anywhere in the world, the odds are people have heard of us.
Yeah, yeah. And as you say, because of that. Also, they were a founding member of the English Football League, weren't they, originally as well? John, let me ask you about, here we are, Project Restart. We're well underway, well, in the top league. How much more difficult has your job been, or do you think your job will be because of the pandemic. What will the repercussions of this pandemic be for your club?
Well, I think because we don't pay a lot of money out, our chairman says it's our Tim partners that's been our fail-safe at the moment. I think that's doing us a disservice. I think it's our prudence that's kept us in good stead. We don't overspend. We don't spend money that we haven't got. We pay a reasonable wage for League One football. And as a consequence of that, we furloughed most of the staff. We're able to get by. We can keep our heads above water. I think looking long term, I think this will do a lot of financial damage to quite a few teams in the lower leagues. But I think it'll be a reset for football. Certainly at the lower levels, there's talk about a salary cap coming in and a squad cap coming in, which, for us it'd bring us back to the centre really. They're talking about a wage cap of 2.5 million, 3 million. Well, there's teams spending 15, 16 million in our league. So that would make it a more of a level playing field. But I think going forwards, I think people are going to cherish the fact that they can be professional footballers. I think footballers got a little bit blasé at the moment. And, footballers in general take it for granted. One of the things about not being a pro as a kid growing up, although I desperately wanted to be one, is the novelty hasn't worn off of full-time football for me. So
when you were scoring all those goals for all those different non-league teams, did you have to hold down another job?
Yeah, I was having to work, because I had a young family. So, you couldn't survive just on your football money.
What were you working?
Towards the end of me playing days, I went back to university and did a teaching degree. So I did qualify to become a primary teacher, and it was crazy because I started my job while we were still part-time as a primary teacher. And to get your status of being a qualified teacher, you've got to do 1 year QTS, qualified teacher status. And so we went full-time at the start of July, and I was itching to get out there, Yeah. But I had to do another month teaching. Yeah. So I had to just let the coaches carry on. And every day I had to see my month out. But, it stabbed me in good stead because I am now, whether anything happens, I am a qualified teacher, So.
Good man. Well, I hope nothing does happen, yeah. But always good to have a plan B. When you and I were in our teens, you used to see a progression. You could have lower league players. I mean, then the old Division 2 or the old Division 3, and those players would have hope of making it into a squad in the first division. Has that dream gone, or do players from the lower league, I mean, I'm thinking of Jamie Vardy, actually, he's certainly an exception, but are there many Jamie Vardy stories out there? Is there a career progression, or does it not work like that nowadays?
It's very difficult. You will get the odd ones, but in the main, the big teams and the Premier League, they've got that, they're awash with money that much that they can cast a net far and wide. So without being disrespectful, a kid of 9 or 10, if they can put 2 foot in front of one another and kick a ball straight-ish, they'll get 6 weeks at a Premier League club. They'll look at them because they're petrified of losing the next Wayne Rooney. Most of the ones who go on to play Premiership football will have been exposed to academies. Now, they might go out on loan, like what Harry Kane did to Orient and David Beckham went out. They might go out on loan to the lower leagues, but the ones who make that step up are getting fewer and far between. And football's changed, life's changed. When we were kids, footballers were well paid. They'd be on 4 or 5 times your dad's wage. But that was still fantastic money for doing something that they loved. But they were still in touch with the common man. And if we went to watch football, it cost you, 20p. So it was probably 200th of your dad's wage or 100th of your dad's wage. Whereas now, to go and watch football, you're talking about 1/10 of the average working wage. And the footballers are on probably 200 times what I would say a dad's wages. Yeah. So it's gone both ways. It's got football's being taken away from the common man, really, to a certain extent.
Yeah. What about the common manager? Can you manage in League One and have an aspiration of going further up as a manager, particularly being a British manager, especially maybe being an English manager? Because sometimes I feel there's more of an attraction, for whatever reason, for Scottish managers, that there seem to be gritty and determined and honest, and no messing about from them and whatever. Or have I got that wrong?
No, I think it goes back to the Fergie factor, doesn't it? You know, everyone wanted the next Fergie. So that's why Scottish managers had a head start. And who wouldn't? You know, unbelievable manager in the modern day football. Yeah, we could be seeing a Klopp factor. You know, German managers being the vogue. We've seen that already. I do think English managers don't get the credit they deserve. There's some great English managers out there, both old and young. Some great coaches out there, and it doesn't seem to go the other way. We don't seem to see the English managers going abroad and you know, getting top jobs. You know, obviously you have the exceptions, Bobby Robson, Terry Venables, but you know, you don't see it very often. And I'd like to see it more. I mean, I'd love to maybe have 2 or 3 years at the end of my career managing abroad, just to see what it's like and have the experience. I know I experienced it with Sligo, but it can get cold there on Ross's Point.
Well, I mean, it is always an aspiration for you, I suppose, to have something like that. But you do know what it's like to put the ball in the back of the net, right? You also know, as the manager, what it's like to collect a cup, to collect a championship. You've won a lot in your time. What is the better feeling, my friend? Planting a goal in the net, or actually getting the nod that this manager business, I'm quite good at this?
Well, I always say strikers should make the best managers, because it's like a drug, scoring a goal. The feeling you get, you can't replicate it. And even if there's 10 there, if there's 1,000 there, 10,000 there, whatever. But when the thrill I got from scoring a goal, I mean, obviously, as a player, I always wanted to win the game first. And I was delighted when my team scored. You know, I'd celebrate with all the other players. But when I scored, it was a notch up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've got that inner feeling of satisfaction. And you get exactly the same feeling now when my team scores. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to score a lot of goals. I'd score 40 odd a year. But now you're getting that buzz maybe 90 times a year.
Yeah.
It's just a fantastic feeling. You know, we won 4 titles, and the first one that we won, I was actually player manager, and I played in the last game. You couldn't have got another person on the ground. The actual attendance officially was 2,468.
Yeah.
Chairman at the time, Eric Worley, an old legend in Accrington. I think he was pushing him in with a stick. And I managed to score in that game. And that feeling, that will never, ever be beaten. That in. If anything can do in football, nothing will beat that first championship win and playing and scoring.
But what about that whole juggling act of being a player and a manager? You've tried it. You've done it. You obviously did it very well. Difficult one to pull off.
I don't think you'll see it anymore. I think it's getting harder and harder, you know. And I think, did Vialli do it for a bit? Chelsea, I'm not sure. Kerry Dalglish obviously did it and won the double. But I just don't think you can. There's too much going on, and there's too much time that you have to focus outside football to concentrate on your playing thing. And the thing I noticed when I was playing manager was, rather than looking at your own runs and where you are in relation to the pitch, to where you should be, what you should be doing effectively, I was looking at what my keeper was doing, where my right back was, where my left back was. I was forgetting being a footballer, basically. I was a manager on the pitch, just having a better view.
As a manager, how would you like to be perceived? I mean, you said there that you always like to manage the way you would have been treated as a player. You have that in your mind. Anybody who comes to play with you, for you in the future, and how the fans would remember you, how would you like to be remembered?
I've had lots of players go through our books and played under me, and I'd like to think, certainly in the 90%, they'd love to come back. You know, the amount of ex-players who still call me Gaffer, sometimes in front of their own Gaffer, which is embarrassing. But, you know, I believe in building relationships. You know, I'd like to think I'm a good man manager. Now, that doesn't mean you make it like a holiday camp. You know, it's got to be hard working, enjoyable, but it's got to be fair, and you've got to be consistent with them. And I think one of the big strengths you can have as a manager is empathy. And I've been through a lot of things in my life, so there's chances that whatever a player's going through at a certain time, I've been there and done it. And so I can maybe advise them or put an arm around them, congratulate them, whatever it is, whatever they need at the time. But I think, if I want to be remembered, it's by treating people right. As people, really. Treating them as people, not as a commodity. And, if you've got to tell them bad news, tell them it. But, be honest with them. And I think that's the best way to be.
John Coleman, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to your thoughts and reflections and visions for the future. Good luck with your new season. Thank you very much indeed for being my gaffer. Thank you.
Thanks, Eamon.
You've been listening to John Coleman. He's the boss of Accrington Stanley. I'm Eamonn Holmes. This was Eamonn and The Gaffers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And you can download this from wherever you do get your podcasts or on YouTube.